Akobom ana esibuo. So finally, OSP AKSA in the 2015 AKSA Kweku Asante Beko bribe no wabodin nkrofo ye persons of interest over prosecutor owie no shady deputy attorney general na attorney general mechiro bema evidence critical analysis ye mo ye tirimu kasam wa shady no mokaya abrante no de asam ne court or challenging the constitutionality of the OSP no ye fe no Noah Adamite current deputy attorney general Justice Ramsay and the children ade ne boy no wakoshedi no so wanya dwuma bia wote wo meme ne bia yedma wo betimi aka se ye prescription so wabodi obehwehwe mu wa identify officials of gridco technical advice ana ne ye hwehwe na ne din wa report no waboni di ba OSP say edina wabone nchire bibi okane nyina in this video na me de bro enti make sure so be subscribe am subscribe and click bell notification the video be atuma ubehu no watima hwebu wi you have a comment feel free leave that comment in the comment section we are make sure so because Goldberry construction limited and episodes in assassin kratasam documentation related to your house and Goldberry ebedi say juma ne nyina e de ama we are backup access or project episode you be need people to track it for you and everything backup access have the expertise to do that for you clearly. In 2050 Asante Beko ye train the sentence in November wetima ko 30 years dum so buy na say ye ko top power plant na say bim ko ye jirigogo members of parliament dia boma start yi o mo ho no kwamna don ko ne lawyer KTM no no ranking member na energy committee abetcholete onim ho hwe bi say we $46,000 say sika bia anye yi o was for the letter by so di hujuma in fact the day we read the transcript from the Kotomo OSP abaso say oma evidence ni ade na no ne anko no ma AKSA jaben grante press conference bubu din oma obehwehwe mu TV.
On 6 August 2026, a federal jury in Brooklyn, New York, convicted Asante Beko, a dual citizen of Ghana and the United States and former managing director of Tema Refinery and former executive director in the investment banking division of the US-based Goldman Sachs Group of conspiring to pay more than $1 million in bribes between 2014 and 2015 to multiple Ghanaian officials in connection with the development and financing of a 370 megawatt fuel oil plant in Tema, Ghana, under a deal between the Republic of Ghana and AKSA Energy Üretim, a Turkish energy company, and a Goldman Sachs client. The OSP provided investigation and evidentiary assistance to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, of the United States through Ghana's established mutual legal assistance framework. The involvement of the OSP has been acknowledged by the United States Department of Justice, DOJ, as providing significant assistance to the prosecution. Even with this, people say, we claim it is always the OSP. The conviction underscores the importance of international cooperation in the investigation and prosecution of complex corrupt acts spanning multiple jurisdictions. Predictably, the outcome of the trial of Beko in the United States ignited immense public interest and discourse on the domestic dimension of the investigation in Ghana. We wish to state clearly that the OSP's work on the matter did not end with the assistance provided to the authorities in the United States. We have been actively and carefully investigating the Ghanaian dimension. I say carefully because it must always be borne in mind that a conviction of a person in a foreign jurisdiction does not, of itself and without more, establish criminal liability under Ghanaian law or justify the immediate prosecution of other persons in Ghana connected with the underlying conduct. Each person's act must be assessed under Ghanaian law, using lawfully obtained evidence capable of supporting a prosecution here. The nature of the evidence and the applicable law determine whether prosecution should be commenced in Ghana or otherwise. That is to say, the conviction of Asante Beko in the United States does not provide automatic basis for the prosecution of identified persons who acted with him under Ghanaian law. The circumstances of the case are such that the actions of Beko may not necessarily establish culpability in other persons under Ghanaian law. The OSP will not prosecute a person solely on the basis that a person's name appears in proceedings conducted in another country. Equally, the OSP will not hesitate to prosecute such persons where the evidence establishes a proper basis for so proceeding. As I stated earlier, we have been carefully investigating the Ghana dimension, and our public silence has not meant inaction. Our involvement with the case and the evidence so far enable us to identify the following as the main persons of interest in this case. 1. Kwabena Donko, who was at all times the Minister of Power. 2. Francis Walkson Kwesi Jata, at all times the technical advisor to the Minister of Power. 3. Solomon Ajete Sowa, at all times a deputy director at the Ministry of Power. Lyndon George Nisor Metal, at all times a director at Tricop Group Limited. And Bafo Ankuma Brobe, at all times an employee at Tricop Group Limited. These are our persons, our main persons of interest for the time being. Other persons of interest include some present and former employees of Volta River Authority, Ghana Great Company Limited, Electricity Company of Ghana, Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission, and some staff of the entity formerly known as the Ministry of Power. Please bear in mind, and this point should be strongly emphasized, that the person of interest is not necessarily a suspect. The two categories, person of interest and suspect, are distinct investigative classifications and should not be treated as interchangeable. Then again, identification in either category does not constitute criminal culpability or conviction until guilt is proved beyond reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of a court of competent jurisdiction. So, we should be circumspect as to how we report this announcement and how we treat the named persons of interest. Still on this case, we have heard talk and from official sources that the OSP should not be the institution investigating the matter, and that the OSP lacks the capability and track record to investigate the matter. This begs the obvious. The institution, which provided significant assistance to the successful prosecution of Beko in the United States, rather lacks the capability and track record to investigate the Ghana dimension, and that other institutions, which were not even involved in the matter, are more competent than the OSP. Once again, Uchiro Kwadua, now we're in America. We did the case with the FBI, and you are saying we are not competent to handle the case. What kind of logic is that? At the OSP, we do not regard the fight against corruption as a competition between institutions and as pitching one public agency against the other. At the OSP, we reckon that the anti-corruption drive is better served through cooperation and collaboration among public institutions.
Yes. Into onka me akromfo. They are persons of interest. Umbitimi ama answers bi. Inti no obubo mudin. Na ninta mi se wo shade Attorney General no me evidence eniye.
The FBI is done through that Office of Attorney General. And it's not only OSP that has collaborated with the FBI on this matter. As Yogu said, they've also collaborated. And it's also not true that it is just about bribery and corruption. It's also about money laundering. You know, so there are other offenses involved in it that do not necessarily fall within the mandate of OSP, but which falls within the mandate of Ioku. So all these nuances must be resolved. So it is not a question of, I want to do it. Yes, you want to do it, but who has the mandate to do what ought to be done? It could be that they can collaborate. It could also be that BNI would take over the whole thing. It could also be that the police would have done their work. So it is not a question of, and it shouldn't be turf war, because the essence of all these agencies is to fight corruption and to make sure that crime does not survive in glory.
Yes. There seems to be still that rift between them, and I think that they need to iron out the differences. We need to fight corruption in a unison. We can't be firefighting and isolate and run around ourselves and have issues here and there and all that. I think that the two gentlemen should have the issue. We know a guy, he's closely associated at the Sham side. And I think that all these issues are there. But for me, that aside, the biggest issue that at least we've taken the step. and I be American. Men can't be a crumb for many evidence. But see, I take steps and say, I did be a see a go mine who fin, a bore mine car into ye behumono. There's an article about how power contract a D Africa them energy contract. So I applaud the OSP. Say OSP so yoko almost settle differences. No, now unfortunately OSP can also not prosecute without going to get a warrant from the Attorney General. I think that those differences must be settled, and they must fight towards one common unity and get us the names of the people involved. Because you see, se debia na koye se enyahwe yemfe menyame enyahwe we don't send the right signal out there. At least yemfe nkrofo bi una na wo ho dey ne see nipa no bank ayi yenhwehwem, then you all get finality. Ba samoba ne ene say nipa no kan mum na epuble enyahwe there be entimi enyahwe sa, because the office that those people occupy, they occupy it in trust for me now. President Mahama ntimi in the ministry biano enti no abo obidin ense bibi ba admunim ne Mahama one the corruption here na ban egunani ase enti bibi aba ne abo nkrofo bi disasa ankrofo no ekojeje niema bi eno ne kan ma aban no animgu ase a. What is wrong with investigating? That is why I applaud this OSP. So what this ejuma no onfre obi amfa ne yansa mara ebo wabo amo wonso a amo me amesa aba abe report ya mama. We buy a short because I said a cover be 5 here and me 2 mama. This is the breaking news coming in. What do you make of it? Share your view in the comment section. We are now ude what subscribe now. What subscribe now click the notification the video be at my who not share. Make sure so show say them me here Ghana see here. Bye bye.